that quorum bell to enable the members to be able to make their way into the chambers. Remember, if the quorum is not achieved as provided for in the House Standing Order, then the House can be adjourned until the next sitting. And of course, we will be waiting to see the directions that the Speaker will give after the lapse of the 5 minutes. Hopefully, the House will have achieved that required number. We have seen the Majority Chief Whip, Honorable Bonnie Halwale, who's also the Senator for Kakamega. He must have stepped out to whip the members to be able to get into the chambers for the House to continue with its business. You will remember that it is a Wednesday, that on normal occasions, Cabinet Secretaries usually appear before the chambers to respond to various concerns that are raised by the members. That is usually referred to as question time. But owing to the current situation where the Cabinet was dismissed, then that has been put aside for a while until when the Cabinet is constituted and there are Cabinet Secretaries to be able to be asked or invited to appear before the Senate chamber. So this morning there are a number of motions that with regards to the business the members will be able to be considering. The other motion is on the report of the Select Committee on County Public Investments and Special Funds on its consideration of the audit reports of the water service providers for the year ended 30th June 2019, 30th June 2020, and 30th June 2021. These are 3 consecutive years, and it is a motion that is moved by the Chairperson, Committee on County Public Investment and Special Funds.
2023 for the Office of the Controller of Budget. 2, reports of the Auditor General and financial statements of the National Government's Constituencies Development Fund, NGCDF, for the year ended 30th June 2023.
The committee will be seeking to have the House adopt its report on its consideration of the audit report.
Kitui Rural, number 4, Webuye East, number 5, Webuye West, number 6, Samburu West, number 7, Samburu North, number 8, Marakwet West, number 9, Keyo South, number 10, Narok West, number 11, Kajiado Central, number 12, Baringo Central, number 13, Baringo South, and 14, Mokotio, and finally, Matungulu. I thank you, Honorable Speaker.
The Honorable Mishi Mboko Ishi in.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I beg to lay the following paper on the table of the House today, Wednesday, 24th July 2024, the annual report of the Parliamentary Service Commission for the financial year 2022-2023. I submit. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Very well, noted.
Order number 6, notices of motion. Order number 7, questions and statements.
With questions and statements, we got the member for TRT, the Honorable William Kamket. Matek.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, sir, pursuant the provisions of Standing Order 42G, I would like to ask the Teacher Service Commission the following. Number one, could the commission provide the current recruitment status of principals and deputy principals in arid and semi-arid areas who have served for over 10 years without formal employment letters? Number two, what measures is the commission putting in place to streamline the appointment process of school administrators in arid and semi-arid regions, ensuring transparency, fairness, and adherence to established procedures? Number three, could the commission provide a timeline for when these teachers will receive their confirmation letters and have their arrears paid for the period they have served as principals and deputy principals since their deployment? I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. The Honorable Gonzirai. Oh, go ahead.
Thank you.
Oh. The question by the Honorable Gonzirai, just take your seat for a moment.
Okay.
The question by the member for TRT will go to the Department Committee for Education. I know that Honorable Mele is here. Okay, the Honorable Malulu.
Chairman, we'll invite the PS in next week. Then I believe after that we'll make a report to the House. Thank you.
This question is related to the Commission, not the PS.
Sorry, yes. The CEO, Nancy Macharia, next week.
Okay. The Honorable Makali. This question.
Yeah, thank you, Honorable Speaker. Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. I just wanted to say this, Honorable Speaker, in relation to that question which Honorable Kamket has forwarded to the Departmental Committee on Education, that matter is a matter which is cutting across, actually, not even semi-arid. It's a national problem. And I really wish that the Departmental Committee on Education takes it urgently with the TSC. It is a matter which is affecting a lot of teachers. It has demoralized a lot of our teachers. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Thank you. The Honorable Gonzirai.
Honorable Speaker, pursuant to the provision of Standing Order number 44, into brackets 2, into bracket C, I rise to request for a statement from the chairperson of the Departmental Committee on Blue Economy, Water and Irrigation regarding the status on implementation of MYKE Dam project. Honorable Speaker, MYKE Dam Development Project, which is located on the MYKE River in Kwale County, is a crucial development envisioned to benefit millions of Kenyans in the coastal region and boost agricultural activity in the surrounding areas. Despite its importance, the implementation of project has been ordinarily delayed. His Excellency the President recently inaugurated the construction, marking the beginning of its long-awaited implementation on 2023. Honorable Speaker, it is against this background that I seek a statement from the chairperson of the Departmental Committee on Blue Economy, Water and Irrigation on the following. 1. What is the status implementation of the MYKE Dam project, including progress reports and any challenge encountered by the Ministry of Water, Sanitation and Irrigation? 2. Could the Minister clarify whether the settlement action plan was implemented to ensure the relocation of people affected by the Mache Dam project and outline the provisions provided to the people for restoration of their livelihoods. 3, explain why schools located in close proximity to the Mache Dam construction, where learning is disrupted by dust, noise, and other impacts due to the construction, have not been relocated to provide more conducive learning environment. 4, state the measures that the ministry has put in place to mitigate further escalation of conflicts and address grievances by the residents, which include fair wages by the construction company and community environment for the purpose of transparency during decision making. 5, explain the actions that have been taken to facilitate collaboration by the national and land government in resolving the lingering land dispute and compensation issues to ensure timely completion of the project. I thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Thank you. This question will then be directed to the relevant committee, the Committee on Blue Economy, Water and Irrigation. And I saw the Honorable Kangogo sometime earlier. The Honorable Dorothy, are you a member of that committee?
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I can see the chair is not around. I'm a member of that committee. I'll pass that information, and I want to promise in 2 weeks' time you'll be able to give a reply. Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Thank you. You just.
Mr. Speaker, the urgency of this matter is very urgent because of the fact that the works have been stopped at the Mache Dam as of now. So if actually we can just give some timelines to ensure at least the works can just continue. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Okay, the Honorable Dorothy, you need to get the Honorable Kangogo to inform you of the urgency of this matter. I'm sure the Honorable Gonzi can also be able to engage the chairperson, even as you wait for the formal engagement at the committee level. Thank you.
Thank you. I stand guided. I want to assure the member it will be looked into. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Order number 8, procedural motion, exemption of specified business from the standing order 43.
The little majority.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I beg to move that this House resolves to exempt the business appearing as order number 11 in today's order paper from the provisions of Standing Order 40, subclause 3, being a Wednesday morning, a day allocated for business not sponsored by the majority or minority party or a business sponsored by a committee. Mr. Speaker, the general import of this motion is, without anticipating debate on Standing Order number 11, is to seek to have that order be discussed this morning because as a consequence of the rejection of the finance bill. This is a supplementary budget that we need to discuss so that we can align government's expenditure to the budget, to the monies that is collected by KRA. So, Mr. Speaker, this is just to allow the House to debate the supplementary budget that will be coming in the next order in order number 11. So I am seeking that members do support this because this is purely a procedural motion, and I would like to request the Honorable Bukosa to second.
Honorable Speaker, thank you. I stand to second the procedural motion to exempt the business appearing as order number 11 from our usual sitting for bills not sponsored by minority or majority party or a committee. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Members, I propose the motion that this House resolves to exempt the business appearing as order number 11 in today's order paper from the provisions of Standing Order number 40, subsection 3, being a Wednesday morning, a day allocated for business not sponsored by the majority or minority party or business sponsored by a committee. The Honorable Oundo.
Thank you, Speaker, for this opportunity to comment. In essence, I don't oppose the motion, but obviously, like every Kenyan will ask, what's the hurry? The bill already is running. It has already been signed, enacted, and it's operational. All that we need to do is to rationalize the budget to fit the expected revenue. We have not even concluded the presidential memorandum on the Finance Act. So I don't know where we are anticipating debate. What if Honorable Bukoso, Dr. Bukoso is able to marshal 2/3 majority to defeat the presidential memorandum? Where does it leave us in such a circumstance? So procedurally, Honorable Speaker, I would have imagined the orderly way to do things will have to have dealt with the presidential memorandum on the finance bill, Finance Act, or finance bill, so to speak. So we are certainly sure that the amount that was proposed, 300 and something billion, is not going to be realized. Before then, we rationalize the budget. What if we are able to defeat the presidential memorandum and then we pass the finance bill the way it is? So will you have again to do another second supplementary, which becomes very untidy? Fine, I don't sit in the House Business Committee, but if I sit there, that would have been my advice. Let's deal with the revenue side, then we finalize with the expenditure side. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
This is a very straightforward matter. I don't know why there would be so much. Members, I just put the question on this matter, that this House resolves to exempt the business appearing as order number 11, today's order paper from the provisions of Standing Order 43, being a Wednesday morning, a day allocated for business not sponsored by the majority or minority party or business sponsored by a committee. Will as many of that opinion say aye? Will as many of that opinion say nay? Ayes have it. Next order.
Order number 9, the National Transport and Safety Authority Amendment Bill, National Assembly Bill number 24 of 2024, first reading. A bill for an act of parliament to amend the National Transport and Safety Authority Act and for connected purposes.
Next order.
Order number 10, the Public Service Internship Bill, National Assembly Bill number 63 of 2022, second reading, resumption of debate.
Thank you. Members, the debate on this bill has been ongoing. You got a balance of 33 minutes on this to be concluded. And as of the last time it was on the order paper, the member on the floor finished their contribution. So I don't know whether what I can see on my dashboard is for people who want to contribute on this bill. I will start with Honorable Gishimu Gidinji of Gishugu.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for the opportunity to contribute to this bill, the Public Service Internship Bill, sponsored by Honorable Naisura Lesuda. Honorable Speaker, from the onset, let me say that this is a very progressive bill that will address the issues, some of the issues that have been raised by the young people of this country, because it seeks to place them in a very good situation in terms of matters internship. And Honorable Speaker, this is a matter, though it has been happening in this country, has not been legislated. And when this bill now comes into place, Honorable Speaker, it is a bill worth being supported by every member for the interest of the young people of this country. However, Honorable Speaker, I would like to make some comments and proposals in respect of the bill that we would be discussing and probably making amendments towards the Committee of the Whole. Honorable Speaker, the Cabinet Secretary, who is indicated under the bill, is the Cabinet Secretary in charge of labor. However, I would like to consult with the sponsor of the bill to seek concurrence that we have the Cabinet Secretary who is in charge of public service, because this is a matter of public service. And going down the bill, you'll find that the institutions are in charge are the institution of the public service. Honorable Speaker, then under clause 6.1, it refers to a person in charge of the public service. I think, and in my opinion, with the concurrence of the sponsor, I'll be seeking an amendment so that we institutionalize the matter of internship than personalizing it, so that we leave it to the public service. Public service in itself is an independent commission, and once we say public service, it does not matter who will be in charge, but the public service as an institution will be in charge of the internship. And that also goes to clause 6.4, whereby the public service as an institution, as a commission, an independent constitutional commission, will be required to do the recruitment. Honorable Speaker, under clause 9E, there appears to be a conflict or a misunderstanding between the supervisor and the mentor. I think we need to centralize an intern before, or to be, there should be only one person in charge of an intern, instead of having a mentor and a supervisor for ease of coordination of the activities of an intern. I think that is an area that I will also be seeking with the concurrence of the sponsor to have an amendment. Honorable Speaker, if you go to clause 10, clause 10 provides for the stipend which should be paid to the intern, and that should come by way of a regulation by the Cabinet Secretary. I think since a stipend is also very central to the issue of an intern, we should have the regulations also pegged on a specific time within which they should be made. And I will be moving an amendment to say that where a stipend has to be by a regulation by the CS, that has to be done within 6 months, so that we don't have a situation whereby an intern starts and ends the internship without the regulations being in place. Maybe 6 months from the date of assent of this act, of this bill into law. Honorable Speaker, under clause 11, it provides for a medical, a personal insurance cover. personal accident cover for an intern. I think there should be a general insurance cover, which should also cover any other medical issue and also matters of personal accidents. So I think that's an area that I will also be seeking to have an amendment during the committee of the whole. Honorable Speaker, if you look at the clause 14, clause 14 provides for grounds under which an intern can be discontinued. And Honorable Speaker, under these grounds, I think we should make it very lenient. We should not make it very strict, that if an intern does not appear at his or her place of work within 24 hours, you discontinue. I think we should make it a bit lenient so that if an intern does not appear at the place of work for a longer period, like maybe 2 weeks, without any explanation or any permission from the supervisor or the mentor, I think that can also lead to gross misconduct or kind of disobedience. I think we should limit the discontinuation only to 2 grounds, whereby it can only be through a gross or dishonorable misconduct or where an intern has already or has been found criminally liable, so that we can make it very easy for these interns to do their job. Finally, Honorable Speaker, if you look at the clause 15, which provides for the general regulations, I think we also need to peg or to put a limit of time under which the cabinet secretary who is in charge of the interns, that is, in my opinion, the cabinet secretary in charge of the public service, it should be given a time limit of about 6 months within which the regulation should be in place so that we can be able to operationalize this act within a very reasonable time. Honorable Speaker, otherwise, this bill is very progressive, and with many amendments, or the few amendments that I've been able to highlight, it will be able to address the issues that the young people of this country, some of the issues that they've been indicating, where internship has not been very well structured in this country, and it will enable them to progress their careers. And one of the things that we should also be able to structure in this bill is to differentiate the internship by the national government and the internships by the county governments. And also, we should also indicate that the period that have been served by an intern should also be considered as part of the experience when an intern is also getting or applying for a permanent job in this country. Honorable Speaker, I beg to support.
Thank you. The member for Kitui West, you want to speak on this? Do you want to speak on this, member for Kitui West?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Let me say that from the onset, that I support this bill. It's very important, especially for the unemployed graduates. This time in Kenya, we have so many people who are unemployed. The rate of unemployment is so high. So this bill is coming at the right time, especially to put the ones who are not employed through a program. Mr. Speaker, I note that it has not talked about the period of internship, although it's saying those ones who are not employed, but I thought it could talk about the period. Is it immediately after graduation? Because as I've said, the rate of unemployment is so high. So if we leave it open, even people who graduated like 20 years ago and have not gone through the internship, it will be open for them. So I think it's important that it states the period when this internship should be done. I have also noted that it's actually including some things which have not been included, like insurance. These days when they go for internship, there is no insurance, there is no medical cover, and this bill is actually addressing such. So it's a very a good bill, and is taking care of that. Otherwise, Mr. Speaker, I support, and I say I think it's good to address the period. Thank you.
Thank you. For Starehe.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And from the onset, let me say I support this bill because it seeks to address some of the issues and most of the issues that the youth go through when it comes to matters employment. I think this is a step in the right direction, and this House should discuss more on these issues that have been raised even in what we've seen in the country, that the youth are claiming their space in this country. In matters internship, it goes without saying that this is an area that the youth have always experienced, have always been disadvantaged in terms of being manipulated and maybe being treated in not the right way. And I support my colleague who has come up with this bill because it seeks to address some of those challenges. Like, for example, if you look at the amount of exposure that these interns get at some of these areas they work in, it is very limited to being messengers. They are given these later duties. They are not exposed to attain experience in these fields that they work in. And it is only fair that we understand that the world is moving in a very revolving way, the world is advancing, and the technologies are changing every now and then. Most of these interns possess great knowledge, great wisdom, and great ideas on how to move this country forward. And it is only right that from now going forward that we treat these interns in the right way and actually use their manpower to move this country forward. So I support this bill and also ask for the move of the bill to incorporate an element of making sure that once these interns finish the internship, they have a promise on being absorbed into these companies, into these areas that they work in, so that we can address the issue of unemployment. Mr. Speaker, we've seen the doctors' interns, people who are highly educated, suffering in the streets of Nairobi, asking the government of the day to absorb them and actually begging even for a stipend that has been reduced from 260,000 to a meager 30,000, something that is very not favorable in the economic times that we are in. It is time that this House actually addresses most of the issues that have been addressed by the youth, and we come up with more bills that are progressive like this one. I support the bill, and thank you so much, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. Member for Likoni.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I stand to support the Public Service Internship Bill 2022 by my sister, Honorable Naisula Lesuda. Honorable Speaker, when I look at this bill, it seeks to preserve human dignity as set out in Article 19 of the Constitution through the realization of the economic and social rights, Honorable Speaker, and this is under Article 43(1) of the Constitution, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I think recently we have seen some strike by the medical doctors, and this was because of the internship programs. Honorable Speaker, the bill will promote a clear linkage between education, training, and work. Honorable Speaker, most of the time when you see some advertisements, people are being asked whether you have some experience, whether you know the know-how about that job. So for any person to have placement on job, he needs to have some experience. So I know, Honorable Speaker, if we enact this bill, then it will be easier for our students coming from the university, from colleges and other education institutions and training, they can be able to have some experience, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, the bill also promotes a well-structured and coordinated internship programs. Honorable Speaker, we want a coordinated, structured internship program so that we avoid these things of demonstration, we avoid so many challenges which our students or Kenyans who are coming from universities and colleges are facing, Honorable Speaker, in terms of placement on the jobs. Honorable Speaker, the bill also provides for remuneration of interns. It can be maybe a stipend or maybe a certain allowance so that it can assist them in terms of transport, also for subsistence as the intern contribute to the national building, because they also add value. Anytime they're in that program, they add value. So at least something should be done so that they can motivate them, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, the bill also enhances access to medical cover, which is very important, Honorable Speaker. Sick leave, which is also very crucial, Honorable Speaker. Maternity leave, it's also crucial, Honorable Speaker, as well as insurance, which enable the intern to access all the amenities, thus improving their well-being at the workplace, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, many years back, when our students graduate from university, it was mandatory that they are going to be placed for internship. But nowadays, most of them, they graduate, they're out from colleges, other education institutions, but they don't know where to go. They don't know how to acquire experiences. So, Honorable Speaker, with these few remarks, I want to say that I congratulate Honorable Naisula Lesuda, because when we enact this bill with some few amendments, so that it doesn't bring some crisis again in the future, I support, Honorable Speaker.
Thank you. Member for Sotik. For Sotik, are you contributing to this? You want to speak on this one? Member for Sotik, you are next on line. Use the next one.
The next one, okay. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I also rise to support this motion from our sister, actually my sister-in-law, Naisuta Lesuta. A very, very important, yes. She's Mr. Speaker, I want to say that I speak on behalf of many of my constituents who are the beneficiaries of this very, very important program. Mr. Speaker, the government made a good decision in giving a chance to these young people so that they can be able to know the system, work in government, and also prepare themselves for future assignments. Mr. Speaker, I wanted to say one thing, and this is about the future of these interns. Mr. Speaker, I would like to see a provision in this bill where the students can be able to be absorbed in the department in which they are serving as interns. Because, Mr. Speaker, while we accept that is a very important program, it ends in 1 year. And, Mr. Speaker, these young people, after 1 year, they come to see me again and say, what do we do? So, Mr. Speaker, I would like to see a change so that we can have a chance for them to serve in those departments they are serving, and they become part of the government system. Mr. Speaker, I support.
Thank you. Members, the time allotted for this particular bill is lapsed. I now call upon the mover to reply.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I can see the honorable member from Trans Nzoia doing some sign language to me. I'll give him 2 minutes. You want to? And Honorable Loach also 2 minutes.
Wanyonyi.
Yeah, thank you very much for this chance. I thought I should be able to take 1 or 2 minutes and congratulate the member who actually moved this motion. That it's very important that we actually incorporate some time to both the colleges and the schools, so that at least people who finish colleges or universities, whatever, they are given time to be able to prepare for whatever assignment it is for them. And therefore, it's important that actually this kind of program should be actually be part of schooling or college, whatever it is, so that people can grow, and when they go, they know where they are going, and particularly acquire what is required in that particular field. And therefore, I want to suggest that we actually incorporate this into the schools' syllabus or whatever it is, so that can be able to have either 2, 3, 4, 5 months acquaintance, so that can be able to prepare those who live in the colleges, whatever, for the future. We have people who don't even know what they are doing. They go to, they are employed, and they just become busybodies. So I think this is very appropriate, and I want to suggest that actually we have this incorporated in the school programs. I support.
Thank you, Honorable Watch.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Allow me to thank the Honorable Member Lesuda for coming up with this bill. Honorable Speaker, this issue of internship is a very important issue. As a person who was a beneficiary of internship in different area of specialization, which is the legal profession, I honed my skills and became the person that I am because of the internship that was offered to me, albeit in the informal sector. Structuring this and making sure that it is well thought out, guided by laws, so that you have equal opportunity, well thought out process of skills acquisition, how they are maintained, and eventually how we can absorb these people is something that this House should laud. The doctors' strike and the agitation that was out there is one that we should also give us food for thought and reflection, that what happens to these people after we spend so much time and resources. They have gone to school for 7, sometimes 8 years. How do we eventually ensure that these skills do not go to waste? Lastly, Honorable Speaker, as I support and congratulate the member, there is an agitation by the Generation Z. May have been about good governance and the finance bill, but the actual underlying issues were about opportunities. This bill will be able to create a platform and opportunities for some of those generations, some of whom are in universities, some of those generations that are following, like the Alpha generation, so that they can enter into a structured system of government where they can learn, acquire skill, and use them for national development. I thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable Lesuda.
So thank you very much, Honorable Speaker, for this opportunity to reply to this bill. And I just want to thank each and every member in this House who contributed. I want to say that your input is very valuable to the improvement of this bill, Mr. Speaker. I had written a long list of members who contributed, but I think I misplaced it. I'm not able to call you out by name, but I just want to thank you very much. I have picked a number of issues, Mr. Speaker, which I wanted to bring to the attention of this House and also to Kenyans on some of the comments that members have raised, which I think would be important for us to agree as we move to the next stage. The issue of 24 hours for the internship to be terminated, I agree with you that something could have happened to an intern, and in 24 hours, they are not able to get in touch with their respective workplace. So 24 hours is very short, but also a week or 2 weeks is too long. It can be misused. So we can agree on the time frame, maybe 48 hours or 2 days. At least an intern should be able to have gotten in touch with their workplace on why they are not able to report to work. Honorable Geshangi also mentioned a very important point, which we were struggling with, whether we place it under the Ministry of Labor or the public service. And I agree with you that the cabinet secretary should be of public service. But why we did not go through the route of the commission, and we've had engagements with them and even with the committee, is because not all employment happen at the Public Service Commission. The Parliamentary Service Commission gives opportunity to interns as well, but they do it as PSC. The Judicial Service Commission also employs and even gives opportunity to interns, but not through the Public Service Commission. It does through its own commission. So if we limit it only to the Public Service Commission, honorable members, then we will only be limiting ourselves to that space, while there are other commissions and other entities where people actually get internship or get employed. With something we had canvassed at length. There is also the issue of employment, absorption into employment. And interns have reached out to me from the public. They have really sent messages. You know, they have our numbers, wanatusalimia tu when they feel like. So they've been sending me messages that it is not enough to just go through the internship. They want to be absorbed. This we also canvassed. And because it will have a budgetary implication to the country, we really debated, and we said, because we are not sure on how many people are going on retirement, we are not sure of the budgetary allocation, it is something that we can amend in the bill and say that interns be given priority, so that when the interns move, then others get an opportunity through internship. Because it is unfair that an intern, and I've seen at least with TAC, they had incorporated that in the merit section during employment, if you have done internship and it builds to experience, you get a number of marks. It adds to your marks when you're going for an interview. So this is something we will continue also to deliberate upon, but I think as an amendment, we will include about giving priority to interns when recruitments happen. There is also the issue that was raised on the time frame. Currently, PSC, Public Service Commission, has a time frame when you can be an intern. I think it is until I don't know how many years. They don't take people who graduated much earlier for internship. And people are saying that is discriminatory because they are supposed, anybody, provided you're a graduate, should be able to do internship. And maybe they've been applying for so many years, even 5 or 10 years, and they've not been able to get internship, or they don't have godfathers to get them internship. So we're not supposed to discriminate upon them by not giving them internship. So maybe the time frame we will consider during the next stage of amendments, whether we should do away with it or we make it a longer time, Mr. Speaker. And so I want to thank Honorable Gesha, Honorable Nyenze of Kitui West, Honorable Mishimboko, Honorable Wanyonyi, and Honorable Loch for their contribution. And Honorable Wanyonyi, what you have said about including it when the students are in school, it is captured on who can be an intern. You can do it at the end of your schooling, or you could do it at, as you continue with your education as part of your, because some of them do internship in between, before they graduate as one of the requirements. So that is captured. I wanted also to raise the issue that has been raised about the medical cover. I agree. Maybe we might have to call it to do a proper medical cover and not just the accident insurance. It's something that the government can look at. Even as we move to shift, they can come up with a package that takes care of our interns, generally in terms of a medical cover and not just the accident insurance. I agree with you. This is something that we can look out for. I just want to allay some fears that some members had. For example, the majority deputy leader, Honorable Kubaya, who was saying that he feels like this bill is going to provide cheap labor in this country, where the interns, because we've given them a stipend, we've given them the insurance cover, that we will, the maternity leave, that we are on, and paternity leave as well, that we are going to misuse them because we feel we have taken care of them
to work for us cheaply. That is not the import or the intent of this bill, Mr. Speaker. This bill just dignifies the interns because they are working anyway. Even if you say that we don't want to make them to give us cheap labor, they are actually working. And so as they work, what this bill does is that we dignify them with the services that they're offering at that particular time as an intern, Mr. Speaker. And I wanted to use this opportunity also to raise the issue of the JSS teachers who have been suspended from their duties across the country because of participating in their right when they demonstrated, when they wanted to be employed, Mr. Speaker. There are about 700 and something JSS teachers across the country whose contracts were terminated, Mr. Speaker. I want to use this floor of the House to talk to TSC that kindly treat our teachers as human beings. They were on the streets because they were feeling bad because they've not been employed, and it is unfortunate that their contracts have been terminated when we have put money in this supplementary budget so that they can be employed. And so it is unfortunate that those teachers have been offering their services, and then when they are just about to be employed, Mr. Speaker, TSC now terminates their contract, Mr. Speaker. I know that they have been asked to appeal. They have done letters to TSC. They are waiting to go for interviews, the oral ones, to present their case. I want to call upon TSC this morning that they hasten that process. They return the JSS teachers to work so that when they will be employed, then they will be employed together with the other 46,000 teachers who are going to be employed when we pass the supplementary budget in this House, Mr. Speaker. And so, as I conclude, I want to thank members. I hope we will enrich this bill as we go to the third reading with the amendments. I am free to consultations because, Mr. Speaker, this bill, I started working on it last term. But it has come at the most appropriate time, Mr. Speaker, when our young people are talking to us as leaders. They are speaking to us as a country to consider them, to think about them, to make laws that work for them, and to be considerate, Mr. Speaker, of their well-being. And with those very many remarks, I want to reply. Thank you.
Oh, members, I therefore then put the question that the Public Service Internship Bill, National Assembly Bill number 63 of 2022, be read a second time. Will as many other opinions say aye? Will as many other opinions say nay? Ayes have it.
A bill for an act of parliament to make provision for internship of college and university graduates in the public sector, to provide for hands-on training and acquisition of skills by graduates and for connected purposes.
Next order.
Order number 11, motion, consideration of the first supplementary estimates for the financial year 2024-2025, general debate.
The member for Kiharu.
Thank you very much. Honorable Speaker, I beg to move that this House adopts the report of the Budget and Appropriations Committee on its consideration of the supplementary estimates for the financial year 2024-2025 laid on the table of the House on Tuesday, 23rd July 2024, and pursuant to the provisions of Article 223 of the Constitution, Section 39 of the Public Finance Management Act 2012, and Standing Order 243, 1, approves a decrease of the recurrent expenditure for financial year 2024-2025 by Kenya shillings 38,896,358,312 in respect of the votes contained in the first schedule. 2, approves a decrease of the total capital expenditure for financial year 2024-2025 by Kenya shillings 107,445,988,000 679,478 in respect of the votes contained in the first schedule. 3, approves an overall decrease in the total budget for financial year 2024-2025 by Kenya shillings 146 billion 342 million 55,790 in respect of the votes contained in the first schedule, subject to paragraph 6, that is Committee of Supply. 4, makes the policy resolutions as contained in the fourth schedule. 5, resolves that the first schedule forms the basis for the introduction of the Supplementary Appropriations Bill 2024. 6, orders that the Speaker do now leave the chair to facilitate the consideration of the said budget estimates with respect to each vote and program in the Committee of Supply as contemplated under Standing Order 240, consideration of supplementary estimates in the Committee of Supply. Honorable Speaker, I first of all want to thank this House because we have had a very rigorous period for the last 2 weeks in consideration of these supplementary estimates. Honorable Speaker, this is basically supplementary one, but in reality and practically we know this is actually the main budget. And I say so because, Honorable Speaker, this was occasioned by the fact that in this House we passed the appropriations bill, which became an act, in hope and anticipation that the other side of the budget was to pass also. But, Honorable Speaker, as we all know, Kenyans requested this House and the leadership that we look inwards and look for other alternatives. And, Honorable Speaker, that is the reason why we are coming to this House for supplementary one, even before the implementation of the budget. For the past 3 weeks, the government has only been implementing that what must be done in regards to funding only the critical areas of the budget, whereas the other areas have been put in abeyance, waiting for this process, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, this House passed a budget last month of Kenya shillings 3.992 trillion Kenya shillings. As we come before this House today, we are now having a budget of 3.88 trillion Kenya shillings. And therefore, there has been a decrease of around 111 billion Kenya shillings in overall. But, Honorable Speaker, this is not just the decrease. The decrease that I have talked about, Honorable Speaker, is pegged on 2 things. This House, after passing, then there was a wide gap between what we need to do in terms of filling in the whole of financing of the budget. And there are only 2 alternatives, Honorable Speaker, for us to invoke. One was to borrow slightly more, which we have done, Honorable Speaker, in this budget, where we are now borrowing slightly more to a tune of Kenya shillings, Honorable Speaker, 767 billion, up from our country to continue borrowing, and especially increasing our level of borrowing. Why? The problem we have now as a country is based on the fact that in the previous years, we borrowed more than we ought to have borrowed. And therefore, the weight is now on us. Honorable Speaker, I was just talking to Honorable Marianne Keitani just here, and she's actually very mad by the fact that some of the expenditure lines the Departmental Committee on Trade were considering, they felt they ought not to have been cut. But Honorable Speaker, this is the situation, and I am glad my sister, Honorable Marianne, is listening. This is how it is. And I actually conversed also with the Chair of Trade. I had seen him here today, this morning. Honorable Speaker, out of this budget, Kenyans, this is our country, and these are the bare facts that this financial year we are in, 2024-2025, as a country, will be spending 1.002 trillion Kenya shillings in payments of interest rates alone. Interest rates in card out of domestic borrowing and also foreign borrowing will be spending over 1 trillion Kenya shillings precisely. I think 1.002 trillion Kenya shillings. And therefore, Honorable Speaker, we may come here and read a budget of 3.88 trillion Kenya shillings as we are doing today. But the fact of the matter, even before we finish reading, we are already paying interest rates of 1 trillion Kenya shillings. Honorable Speaker, the monies that we pay in terms of our obligations to the civil servants who have retired, Honorable Speaker, in regards to pensions, we are talking about over 200 billion Kenya shillings. And therefore, Honorable Speaker, even before we start negotiating about which projects to be done, 1.2 trillion Kenya shillings is off the table. Honorable Speaker, we have had also to do something unprecedented, which I'll mention later. But out of that budget, Kenya shillings, 380 billion Kenya shillings is equitable share. And therefore, Honorable Speaker, if we do the math, we see what remains. But even more surprising, Honorable Speaker, you know, when we talk about debt service, it is not just a component of interest rate. It is also a component of also the principal. The entire expenditure in debts, Honorable Speaker, is Kenya shillings 1.8 trillion. And therefore, Honorable Speaker, what you've been doing for the past 1 year, out of 100 shillings collected by Kenya Revenue Authority, Honorable Speaker, 61 shillings has been going into debt service. And therefore, we are left now to grapple on what to do with the remaining 39 shillings. And that is the reality of the matter. Whoever is on the driving seat, Honorable Speaker, whoever is in the National Treasury, whoever is in which other position, those are the grim realities. Honorable Speaker, what we have done this time, and I am saying we because as a country we came together and we decided we needed to rationalize our budget, is that we have done also something unprecedented. One unprecedented thing is to bring a supplementary budget barely before a month ends after the passage of the budget. But secondly also is the kind of cuts. The cuts have been done in all levels of government, and I hope that the members are keen on this. The cuts have been spread across the 2 levels of government. Honorable Speaker, even the county governments are losing 20 billion in their equitable share out of the realities that we face at the moment. Honorable Speaker, the cuts have also been across all the MDAs of the national government. And I want to assure the Kenyan people, we have cut all the flesh. What remains now is only the bone. Maybe in some areas, even the bones have been cut also. And I say so because, Honorable Speaker, we have made sure there is no money left for us who are servants of the people, elected, appointed, those who work for government. There is no money for travel. There is no money for hospitality. There is no money for ostentatious spending. Honorable Speaker, because that is what the Kenyan people told us to do. Honorable Speaker, we have also cut money across all the 3 arms of government. the executive is losing, judiciary is losing, the parliament is losing. And Honorable Speaker, I want to laud the members of this House because we have come together and agreed these are difficult times. And for that reason, Parliament itself voluntarily, without fighting back, is being cut Kenya shillings 3.7 billion Kenya shillings. And Honorable Speaker, this is hedged on many things. For example, when we were conducting the budget committee meetings, we did them around here in Parliament, Honorable Speaker. And I think this is a good thing for us to continue doing so that we continue cutting excess weight out of our budget and we also just live with the bare minimum so that we channel the other resources into the growth of our country and especially our economy. Honorable Speaker, this is the first time ever since I joined this Parliament that NGCDF is being cut and members are clapping. Honorable Speaker, ordinarily, if any chairman of budget would stand here and talk about cuts in NGCDF, Honorable Speaker, I think the motion would have to adjourn. But then these are unprecedented times. And that is why even Honorable Speaker, because we need, as Kenyans have, there is something I also have noted across the days we've been meeting and looking at our budget. This country is rich. And Honorable Speaker, I believe this country has potential to raise much more. Honorable Speaker, Kenya is largely a country where most of the activities happen informally. And therefore, the informal side of our economy is much larger than the formal one. And that is why out of Kenyans who work, Kenya has a working population of 20 million. But out of that, Honorable Speaker, only 3 million have pay slips. 1 million in government, that is in public service, and 2 million in private sector. Honorable Speaker, those are statistics that we must look at as Kenyans. That out of a working population of 20 million, Honorable Speaker, only 3 million are in formal employment. Then the problem of Kenya Revenue Authority starts there, Honorable Speaker. Because when you have visibility of only 3 million Kenyans, then that is where you direct your revenue-raising measures. And Honorable Speaker, what majority of the economies do when most of the economy is in the informal sector, then they come up with other ways of raising revenue. That is in terms of fees, in terms of levies. Because, Honorable Speaker, if you cannot target people using the mainstream manner, then you have to raise money using the non-ordinary revenue, Honorable Speaker. Ordinary revenue would pay in pay, would pay in the income tax. But then, Honorable Speaker, we have seen there is much more opportunity to raise money in the non-ordinary revenue manner, Honorable Speaker. And Honorable Speaker, out of the sittings we had with the members of the Budget and Appropriations Committee, we have seen that Kenya can actually raise much more. And Honorable Speaker, I am glad you're also part of that committee. That in terms of A&A, for example, take 2 funds. Take tourism fund. Take tourism promotion fund, Honorable Speaker. Currently, tourism is surging in Kenya. Tourism numbers are going up. But then we have made laws in such a manner, Honorable Speaker, that these monies collected by these funds can only be used in a certain manner. Honorable Speaker, in our recommendations, we want to make amendments across all the entities of government that collect money. When you collect money from a Kenyan, that is public money. And if it's public money, Honorable Speaker, whereas the collector needs some money to keep them collecting more and being efficient, we must open up these funds for these monies, and especially the surplus, to be channeled to the consolidated fund, Honorable Speaker, so that instead of borrowing, instead of overtaxing the formal sector, Honorable Speaker, we can also raise much more resources through these funds, Honorable Speaker. They contribute to the consolidated fund. Honorable Speaker, sometimes it's a paradox that on this side, the government of Kenya is raising money through T-bills and bonds. But on the other side of the supply side, it is some of the government money that is actually purchasing these boats. Honorable Speaker, some of these rigidities in law has to come to an end. We must open up all the funds. We must open up all the points of appropriations in aid so that these monies cannot continue to be spent in a singular manner. We open this money to the National Treasury to fund critical areas. Honorable Speaker, what do I mean? If there is an increment in A&A, for example, in tourism fund of Kenya shillings 3 billion, if there is improvement of A&A in communication authority, if there is expansion of revenue in the sports fund, Honorable Speaker, the surplus of this money could actually fund the 14.5 billion Kenya shillings we needed for last mile connectivity. But the way we have crafted our laws is that the monies in the tourism fund can only be spent in a specific manner. If that then specific manner, Honorable Speaker, meets saturation level, then what happens is empire building. That the holders of those accounts, Honorable Speaker, the accounting officers, then look for ways to spend. Whichever way to spend, money has to be spent. We do not have money as a country to spend money because it must be spent. We only have even when we have been faced with this kind of a situation. I this time want to request this House, through the departmental committees, that the work of the Budget and Appropriations Committee is basically like the work of the clerk. We listen to you, we do our best, and you know we've been doing our best. When there is a disagreement on especially reallocations, it is not the Budget and Appropriations Committee. It is the direction of the executive in terms of where the retro money that we have needs to go so that we take care of our economy. And I'm saying so because in the previous budget cycles, Honorable Speaker, we have always taken up to the last comma of what is presented to the Budget and Appropriations Committee by the departmental committees. And we consult, Honorable Speaker. I make a point of also personally consulting with the chairs so that any change that is happening is not below the carpet. Because the monies we are dealing with, the departmental chair, Honorable Speaker, is my colleague. The member of a departmental committee is my colleague. It's not that we know better than them. It's only that sometimes when resources are so scarce, there are some specific areas that needs to be funded. And in all honesty, sometimes we have to give that leverage to the executive because they spared us. The buck stops there. And I'm being honest, Honorable Speaker, because this House has been very harmonious, and that harmony is important. But beyond now the cuts, Honorable Speaker, there are some things through the consultations with the National Treasury, departmental chairs, the members of parliament, the executive, there are areas, even if there are cuts, we decided they must not suffer a cut, Honorable Speaker. Because this country is in a place besieged. You know, Honorable Speaker, one of the tenets of economic growth, one is expansion of government expenditure. Then when you constrain government expenditure, the ramifications of that in the months to come would be a contraction of the economy. And therefore, whereas we are cutting also, we must also make sure there is enough money floating around, and especially providing liquidity in the economy. But then, Honorable Speaker, we had to really cherry pick these areas, and especially with the consultation with all the stakeholders. One of the areas, Honorable Speaker, education sector continues to take the bulk of the money because as a government, we are spending 650 billion to education. Honorable Speaker, it is important for us to know as a country, Kenya is a democracy. And most of the democracies like Kenya, therefore have what we call an open market economy, where then trade and economic transactions determine the prices of the market. But Honorable Speaker, to be honest to ourselves as Kenya, when we look at the weight of what the government needs to spend, the issue of Kenya being a market economy and a competitive economy therefore adds when the government starts. Because from where the government starts, Honorable Speaker, Kenya is a socialist state. It's social because, Honorable Speaker, you measure that by the size of government expenditure. 650 billion goes into education. Honorable Speaker, sometimes we wonder, why do we have stored projects, etc., etc.? Some of it is based on the responsibilities that the government has to conduct. One would ask, but the government has been doing these duties nevertheless. But that is not the fact, Honorable Speaker. When this government took over, the other governments had been afraid to implement, for example, CBC. When we talk about CBC, it's not just an education system. It is also a huge expenditure line. Because every learner in JSS, Honorable Speaker, is capitalized by government to a tune of over 10,000 Kenya shillings every year. Was that there before? It was not there before. Honorable Speaker, therefore, the government is spending 650 billion Kenya shillings to education. But what we have made sure that we have safeguarded, and I want to assure the members of parliament here, we have made sure that the monies to confirm the JSS interns, all of them 46,000, has not been cut in the budget. And therefore, Honorable Speaker, we have provided the monies for confirmation to permanent and pensionable for the JSS interns, because anything else can wait, but the JSS confirmation, JSS interns confirmation to permanent and pensionable cannot wait. We cannot allow that to wait, Honorable Speaker. Second thing, Honorable Speaker, is in the health sector. We have provided 8 billion shillings because this House passed a law called SHIF. And there are 3 facts that are in there that are very important for the implementation of the universal health coverage. We have provided 8 billion shillings to start working that journey, Honorable Speaker, as seed money for Kenyans to start benefiting from almost free health services, Honorable Speaker, through SHIF, which this House passed. And in that regard also, Honorable Speaker, we have provided Kenya shillings, 3.7 billion Kenya shillings for the confirmation of interns who are in the health sector, Honorable Speaker, for them to be confirmed into permanent and pensionable terms. Honorable Speaker, Kenya, part of the reason why Kenya is largely informal in terms of the nature of our economy is that we are still agrarian. And Honorable Speaker, this is not something to be proud of. When we measure the economy, we measure economy using 2 things. One is economic growth, Honorable Speaker. And in that, Honorable Speaker, we do qualitative and quantitative. What I've been doing is reporting GDP and the rest. That is quantitative, Honorable Speaker. But we also need to look at the other areas around how people are, how the economy is performing qualitatively, Honorable Speaker. And I say so because majority of Kenyans are engaged in farming, in agriculture. It is not something to be proud of because one of the measures of our country growing or economic growth of a country, Honorable Speaker, is having agriculture contributing less to the economy, not more. In fact, one of the definitions of an economy that has grown, of a developed economy, is an economy whose involvement of agriculture in terms of GDP is less than 10%. Therefore, Honorable Speaker, however, we also have to look at where we are. We are a developing country, not a developed one. And therefore, most of the Kenyans are engaged in agriculture. What we have done in agriculture is this, Honorable Speaker. We have provided Kenya shillings 7.5 billion that will go into fertilizer subsidy. And this time, Honorable Speaker, fertilizer subsidy will be both for food crops and also cash crops. The coffee farmers, the tea farmers, the maize farmers and the rest, Honorable Speaker, will have an opportunity to benefit from that fertilizer subsidy, Honorable Speaker. Second thing, we have provided money for coffee, Cheriford, Kenya shillings, 3 billion. And Honorable Speaker, we have also provided monies, 2 billion, to start paying the coffee debts owed to coffee farmers, Honorable Speaker, and coffee societies. Honorable Speaker, we have provided monies for sugar reforms, which we continue, Honorable Speaker, to provide for us to continue supporting our sugarcane farmers. Honorable Speaker, we have provided Kenya shillings, 1.5 billion, to act as the defense of raw milk prices so that the milk prices, the dairy farmers, can get at least 50 shillings per liter, Honorable Speaker, every now and then, even when there is abundance of the feed, Honorable Speaker. We have also provided, Honorable Speaker, monies, 2 billion shillings, that will go into purchase of coolers. There we have a different program before, where Kenya was to have this program with Pollard. And therefore, Kenya was to provide only 10%, and then Pollard was to give us 95% in terms of loan.
Yeah, some 3 minutes to conclude, Chairperson.
Honorable Speaker, what you have done, Honorable Speaker, is to provide 2 billion Kenya shillings that Kenya government will no longer rely on any other country. We want to buy these coolers as government and supply to the farmers of Kenya, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, there was a Maraga task force, Honorable Speaker, that went around the country to look at the situation of our security officers. Security officers are our brothers and sisters, but they continue to live in a manner, Honorable Speaker, that is subhuman. One, because as we know, they don't have a voice, they don't have a union. Honorable Speaker, this House has listened through the Budget Committee to the cries of our security officers. And we have input Kenya shillings, 3.5 billion Kenya shillings for enhancement of salaries for our security officers, Honorable Speaker, in line with the Maraga Task Force. Honorable Speaker, there are many things we have done, including, Honorable Speaker, monies for aggregation centers, monies for, we have added around 2.5 billion Kenya shillings for aggregation centers. We have added EPZD 1.5 billion Kenya shillings for the factories, Honorable Speaker, that have been ongoing across 6 areas in Kenya, and much more. As I come to the conclusion, I want to thank the Kenyan people. This is a period where we must seize the moment, Honorable Speaker. And one way we are doing to seize the moment, the Kenyan government has over 334 entities, Honorable Speaker. Many of the regulations and the registrations we do in this house, we create new bodies. And Kenyan government continues to enlarge, Honorable Speaker. We create duplication. And in that regard, we have started to walk the talk. And in this budget, Honorable Speaker, we have denied 47 entities monies for operations and maintenance, Honorable Speaker, so that we hook them up, we merge them together so that we continue to have a lean government that is responsive to the needs of the Kenyan people. And Honorable Speaker, that exercise is saving us around 7.9 billion Kenya shillings. Honorable Speaker, at some point we have to ask critical questions in this house. In Muranga, in Taita Taveta, you'll have a Kera engineer. You'll have a Kenha engineer. You'll have a Kura engineer. Honorable Speaker, this house will need to ask very critical questions. And especially when it comes to all these entities. Do you need a Kera engineer, Honorable Mwago in Starehe? Do you need a Kenha engineer in the same place? Do you need a Kura engineer in the same place? Some of those questions, Honorable Speaker, are what we must progressively ask ourselves. And this cuts across all other sectors. The waterworks companies that we have in Kenya, the water industry sector only, has got over 20 entities, Honorable Speaker. We have to ask ourselves, do we need these 20 entities or do we need to scale them down? These are critical questions. They are not in the budget now, but I'm just opening up a debate. Honorable Speaker, I beg to move and request the Honorable Mary Massacre, who is the Vice Chair of the Budget and Appropriations Committee, to second this motion.
Well said, Chairperson. The Honorable Mary Massacre. The Honorable Kanchori.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
The Honorable Memusi.
Memusi, standing in front of me. Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for the opportunity to second the motion on the supplementary estimates. From the onset, I rise to second. Honorable Speaker, indeed we are at unprecedented times, because for the first time in our history, we are revising a budget before even implementing it. And we are all aware that this was. I want to start with the phrase that difficult times call for tough decisions. And the collapse of the finance bill and all that has been happening in the country, I think has given us a number of lessons. And even as we were revising the finance bill, we were guided by some of the lessons that we have learned as a house. So we listened and we had to revise this the budget estimates. And Kenyans have told us we need to stay lean, hungry, and responsible. So as the budget committee, we have made cuts, not only on the non-essential expenditure, but also on essential expenditure. As you look at the estimates, a number of envisaged programs that cut across all sectors, be it water, roads, electricity, even industrialization, as we've just had even the Committee on Trade has complained, and all other sectors have suffered cuts. Honorable Speaker, even corporations, 47 of them are receiving only P&E, personal emoluments. There is one parastatal that is not even receiving personal emoluments as they await the restructuring, the mergers, rollovers, or closure for some of them. So, Honorable Speaker, this House was also not spared. Even the Parliamentary Service Commission, we have CPST, the Proposed Training Center, that is ongoing. And we have a number of projects across sectors that have certificates, have also suffered cuts across board. I don't want to go into the details, but I want to mention one key important aspect. It is important that as we are revising this budget, we need to note that we are revising this budget at a time when the country is facing a lot of challenges. Of course, I've mentioned that we've learned lessons. The country is calling for austerity. The country is calling for accountability. And the country is calling for this House to allocate money in a manner that creates opportunities for the young people, among others. So my call is to those accounting officers, all leaders in positions of leadership, of responsibility, that we must appropriate this money prudently in a manner that will give results. All those who've been appointed to administer the appropriation of this money, make sure you help the president to realize the objectives and for Kenyans to be able to see value for their money. Because Kenyans are still watching us and they'll continue to watch to see how this money is utilized for the benefit of Kenyans. Honorable Speaker, the Budget Committee, we've done our bit. We've made the cuts across board. I do not want to repeat the figures, but it is now up to the individuals who are bestowed with the responsibility to oversight all those institutions, the Auditor General, Control of Budget, among others, ESCC. Let each institution play their role. Accounting officers and all of us, committees, so that we make sure Kenyans get value for money which we are appropriating through this revised budget. Thank you, Honorable Speaker, and I second.
Thank you, honorable members. Order. Order. Honorable members, I now propose the question that this House adopts the report of the Budget and Appropriations Committee on its consideration of the estimates for financial year 2024-2025, laid on the table of the House on Tuesday, 23rd July 2024, and pursuant to the provisions of Article 223 of the Constitution, Section 39 of the Public Finance Management Act 2012, and Standing Order number 243, 1, approves a decrease of the current expenditure for financial year 2024-2025 by Kenya shillings 38,896,358,312 in respect of the votes contained in the first schedule. 2, approves a decrease of the total capital expenditure for financial year 2024-2025 by Kenya shillings 107,445,607,478 in respect of the votes contained in the first schedule. And 3, approves an overall decrease in the total budget for financial year 2024-2025 by Kenya shillings 146,342,055,790 in respect of the votes contained in the first schedule, subject to paragraph 6, that is the Committee of Supply. 4, makes the policy resolutions as contained in the fourth schedule. 5, resolve that the first schedule form the basis for the introduction of the Supplementary Appropriation Bill 2024. And 6, orders that the Speaker do now leave the chair to facilitate the consideration of the said budget estimates with respect to each vote and program in the Committee of Supply as contemplated under Standing Order 240, that is, with regards to consideration of supplementary estimates in the Committee of Supply. And the first person to bite the cherry on this would be the member for Aldai. What sort of order? This is your chance to contribute.
Let me raise the point of order, Mr. Speaker, because many of us would like to contribute to this motion, and for the interest of time, because also of the timelines, if we can allow the motions to be 3 minutes instead of 5 minutes. But I think certain issues should have been looked at because as committees, we sat with the departmental, state departments and sagas to be able to rationalize this budget. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Well done. Member Huisero, Honorable Massacre.
Thank you, Chair. I also join colleagues in supporting the supplementary Budget 1, 2024-2025. Honorable Speaker, I think it's in the history of Kenya that we are processing a supplementary budget a month after the signing in law of the appropriation budget. This is a result of the Finance Act that the President didn't sign it into law, which occasioned a deficit in supporting the entire budget. Mr. Speaker, as the chairman has alluded to it, that despite the challenges that are there, the financial gap and the deficits, the budget strives to ensure that our GSS teachers who've been working on contractual terms are confirmed on permanent and pensionable basis, 46,000 of them. Our intern doctors who have been on streets demanding to be posted. This budget has provided funds to ensure that they are accommodated on the payroll. There are doctors and medical workers who were contracted during the COVID-19 who have been working on contractual terms. So, Speaker, this budget has provided funds to ensure that they are also absorbed on the payroll. More so, Mr. Speaker, the budget provides for fertilizer subsidy, which will go a long way in ensuring that this country is food secure. So, Speaker, this budget also has provided money for our energy CDF programs and projects. Despite the loss of about 10 million on that account, the funds are available to support the CDF projects for this financial year. But, Mr. Speaker, as we load the areas that have been allocated and taken care of, it disturbs my mind, and I may not be an authority on matters economics, but I think also the Treasury technical team is failing this country. So, Speaker, looking at the cuts that were done on this budget, development account is losing close to 137 billion. And as you know, Mr. Speaker, when we reduce economic activities in an economy, it means the economy will not grow. I don't know the wisdom that the Treasury is bringing forward that the economy of Kenya this year will grow by 5.5%, whereas it has gone ahead and reduced about 138 billion from the budget. So, Speaker, Treasury focused more on reducing money for development funded by GOK, but it did not, at the same measure, reduce recurrent expenditure, which we think most monies are lost. Going forward, Mr. Speaker, it is important that the balance must be arrived at so that when you are reducing monies for development, the commensurate should be the same to the recurrent expenditure. So, Speaker, if Government of Kenya will not realize the monies within the financial bill 2023, it means the national government will bear the consequence. It is important that as we go forward, county's government should be brought on board so that when the target is not realized, both the county governments and national government shares the spoils. Lastly, Mr. Speaker, it is important that we rationalize our expenditure, but touching on domestic travels and expenditure also affects the growth of economy. I've read the report from Treasury that it intends to support the economic growth by supporting the service industries. But once the monies that are supporting these hospitality industries are reduced, it means the economy will not grow. Mr. Speaker, I support. Thank you.
Thank you. Mbafalego Usonga.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I also join my colleagues in supporting the supplementary estimates 1, and to say that these estimates have been done in response to complaints from Kenyans that they don't want to be overtaxed, and also following the collapse of the Finance Bill 2024. Honorable Speaker, there have been attempts to address, create austerity measures, and I want to assure members, because I sit in the Budget Committee, that the austerity measures that have been implemented in this budget are real, and as was suggested by Kenyans, there is not going to be continuous largesse in government, especially this House, Parliament. Parliament is been given only resources that they're only going to use to support their operations. There is no excess allocations everywhere, be it in the executive, be it in the judiciary, and I want to urge Kenyans to support this one. Also, Honorable Speaker, you know that this is the first time that the allocations to NGCDF have been cut, and I'm happy that most members of Parliament are agreeable to this because they understand the implication of raising more taxes. So, Honorable Speaker, this budget is basically answering to the needs of Kenyans, and I know that going forward, Kenyans are going to live, government is going to try to live within their means. Honorable Speaker, the other issue that I wanted to address has to do with the public debt, because public debt is a fundamental aspect of this budget. Honorable Speaker, Kenyans don't want us to borrow. Kenyans are tired of these humongous loans. And therefore, Kenyans are saying that we better forego certain services, but we live within our means. So, Honorable Speaker, I know that borrowing has a lot of implications in the money market, because as you know, Honorable Speaker, interest rates have started to rise because of the projection that there would be a lot of borrowing going forward. Honorable Speaker, I wanted to urge the executive that we should try to do everything within our ability not to accumulate more debts, because accumulation of more debts has the opposite effect of, first of all, creating instability in the money market, interest rates going up. If interest rates continue to go up, then you know that the performance of the economy will be affected. Companies that need to borrow money to create jobs, they won't be able to do that, and we are even not going to raise more taxes. So, Honorable Speaker, if there's anything that we can do, and the government can do, and the Treasury CS can do, it has to be something to address the spiraling public debt. And I know that the incoming Cabinet Secretary for Treasury will be somebody who will understand what I'm talking about. Honorable Speaker, I know we don't have a CS Treasury as we talk, but I hear that there's an announcement which could come. Honorable Speaker, if that announcement comes, I want to say that and urge the President to nominate somebody who will be able to address some of these fundamental questions that we are raising to do with the budget. Honorable Speaker, Kenya is a rich country. Honorable Speaker, I have no doubt in my mind that Kenya is a rich country. But if Kenya is a rich country, what is more fundamental is the way we utilize and we allocate our resources. Honorable Speaker, we have said that corruption eats a lot of our resources. But, Honorable Speaker, this is something which this House must help. This House must champion the war on corruption. There is nobody who will do it. This is the House that must do it. So, in order to ensure that this budget is effective, I want to urge members of Parliament to spearhead efforts aimed at addressing the question of corruption. Honorable Speaker, I support. Thank you.
Thank you. Member for Maragua.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me the chance to contribute by supporting the committee for this overwhelming work that they did to bring out the supplementary estimates for the financial year 24-25. Mr. Speaker, I know this was a tedious work for the committee whereby you need to look at where to cut, bearing in mind wherever the money had been put, there was a budget towards that. But Mr. Speaker, it's also a good time for our Kenyans to know that if we do not pay taxes to finance the government, then we have to forego some services and development as well. Mr. Speaker, we also remember that it is within the public domain that we are talking of the debt, which is really pinning the government so far at 1.8 trillion. And I know this is not a debt that has been incurred by this Kenya Kwanza government. We have inherited from the government or from the administrations that were there before. But nevertheless, a debt when borrowed has to be paid. And since we are the ones who are there, we have to look at how we are going to pay. And that is why Chairman Appropriation Committee, the Budget and Appropriation Committee, was bringing the highlight that in every 100 shillings, 61 is going to the debt. We are only left to struggle with 39 shillings. And with 39, which is supposed to go to the salaries and all that, and also for the development, then it means there are some of the projects that will stall and others that will move very slowly before we conclude. Mr. Speaker, I'm also happy that as we did the cuts, we were able to look at the health, which is paramount, and also education, that we left this so that we may continue with the healthy docket and the education, which is paramount as far as our health and our children who are in school are concerned. Madam Speaker, allow me to just chip in two areas in support of our chair, where we are talking of scaling down some entities that it seems to double their function to save the government some money. And Madam Speaker, it's not only some entities, we also have some parastatals. Madam Speaker, when we are looking at the audited reports from the Auditor General, every financial year, we are finding that there is a lot of wastage, and we are also finding that there is a lot of corruption. And that is why we are saying the Kenya Kwanza government need to put a lot of effort to address and to minimize some of these entities through parastatals that are really not doing a lot when they miss money from the exchequer, and there is no much effort to make sure maybe there is some donation that we are getting so that some of the projects that we have, they may continue. Sometimes, Madam Speaker, you find that there is an entity or a parastatal that started on a contract, and the said contractor has taken the parastatal to court, and you find that they are very hefty fines that are paid, and sometimes you find that there are those projects that were started and the contractor is not really working, and you find that the employees who are there, we are paying them money, yet there is nothing that they are doing. Madam Speaker, I'm Vice Chair to the Regional Development Committee, and when you look at the RDAs, and there are several that we have, the employees who are there, we are paying them. But you find the moment that there is no money in the exchequer towards them, whatever they are supposed to do, they don't do, they just stay idle. We feel for them, and we know the importance of these RDAs, because some of the projects they are doing are to alleviate maybe the livelihood of the community around. But despite that happening, you wonder what happens in a given year.
Thank you very much. The Honorable Malulu Ijendi.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I want to thank the Budget Committee for this supplementary budget. Madam Speaker, just want to share my feeling that it's unfortunate that we're in this state of revising our earlier budget due to the demonstrations that we've been having in the country. Madam Speaker, what I want to maybe state or request the Ministry of Treasury, what we learned during this supplementary budget meetings was that Treasury actually came up with cuts across all departments without actually consulting those particular parent ministries. Madam Speaker, for example, the Committee of Education deals with basic education, TVET, university, and the TSC. Madam Speaker, the principal secretaries, when they appeared before the Committee of Education to discuss about this, it was so surprising that they were not consulted when it came to these cuts. However, we are in this state because we have no choice but to cut because the financial bill was rejected. Madam Speaker, I would like also to thank this committee that because they did not affect the interns recruitment, because this is what we are really fearing that it may happen, because the government had actually promised that after internship of 1 year or 2 years, they would be recruited. So all the 46 of them, TSC assured us that they will be recruited. Madam Speaker, I also want to allay fears as raised by Honorable Suda, that those who are champions in demonstrating over this internship program, the 748, we were assured by the CEO, TSC, that all of them will be recruited together with the rest to make the number 46. Madam Speaker, I also want to thank the Budget Committee. We also noted that during this supplementary budget, something drastic that requires, that's a policy shift had happened where the school feeding program, which was initially removed completely from the main budget, and Education Committee ensured that it was returned. Madam Speaker, this had been removed again, moved to ASAL Ministry. I want to thank the Budget Committee that this was returned to the Minister of Education to ensure that, because the Minister of Education has all the infrastructure that can ensure this feeding program goes on as it has been going on before. However, Madam Speaker, I would like to note that most of our persons, especially Kenyans, will have to understand that because of this supplementary budget, some of the expectations they've been having from us may not be there as such. You know, for example, the chairman has talked of electricity, which we had promised our constituents, doing roads, which we had promised our constituents. This will not now happen because of these budget cuts. And Madam Speaker, also, I would like to note that during the upcoming supplementary budget, maybe in the month of September, I would that they restore the monies that were allocated, for example, to TVET. Because, you know, we want all constituencies to have TVETs. This will ensure that our youth have proper training. Madam Speaker, all the development budget for TVETs was removed. So which means those constituencies that don't have TVETs for now, those TVET will not be completed. So we want to urge that when the economy improves, this will be returned, restored, so that we ensure we have proper learning, proper training in our country. Otherwise, Madam Speaker, I support the supplementary budget. Thank you.
The Honorable Dr. Pukose, Member for NDBES and Chair Health.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for allowing me to contribute. First and foremost, I want to congratulate the chair of the Budget and Appropriation Committee, together with the members, who majority of them are actually seated in this house and contributing to this. Honorable Speaker, as the Committee of Health, which will deal with the rationalization of the budget for the Ministry of Health, both the State Department for Medical Services and the State Department for Public Health and Professional Standards. we realize that there are challenges in this budget following the collapse of the finance bill. Honorable Speaker, this finance bill has serious ramifications in the budget because what it means is that where we were planning to purchase another extra radiotherapy machine for Kenyatta, that has to be suspended because what it means now is that Kenyatta has a banker which is ready for a radiotherapy machine, but that machine cannot be procured because we don't have the money. And therefore, you have only one radiotherapy machine in Kenyatta, which is working day and night. And if that machine breaks, then Kenyatta National Hospital will not be able to provide for those services. What it means, Honorable Speaker, is that other services within the health sector had to be foregone because recently we've had interns who are supposed to be posted. The budgetary allocation is 4.3 billion, and what they require is an extra 1.1 billion. And that money cannot be able to be provided because we cannot be able to raise. And therefore, but what we've agreed with the ministry is that they are able to post the interns, all of them, with the SRC proposed salary payout. And then from there, based on what the ruling of the High Court in Eldoret, then that will be able now to inform maybe the subsequent supplementary budget to be able to take care of this. Honorable Speaker, we also have other issues. We have the managed equipment service, which is within the counties, and this is providing where you have CT scans, you have SSD for operations in theater, you have theater equipment, which is being operated within the 97 hospitals. You have radiotherapy, you have radiography, ultrasound, and other services which are being provided. These services have continuously been provided, even without proper extension being done by the ministry together with the suppliers, with the challenges from the counties, because the counties have not committed themselves. The county governors have not committed themselves to be able to take over these services because they are also constrained financially. Honorable Speaker, we also have the rollout of the universal health care through the primary health care, which has now been provided with 2 billion. You have emergency and chronic illness fund, 2 billion, and then the primary health care fund, 4 billion, and you have the social health insurance fund, which is supposed to be rolled out. All these, Honorable Speaker, are challenges that cannot be able to be met because of rationalization of the budget. But all in all, I think with the rationalization of budget, what we went into doing is to make sure that critical services within the ministry are not severely affected, and therefore we were able to give money to institutions like Biofax, which is in the process of vaccine manufacturing, and as you are aware, the donors are in the process of withdrawing, and therefore we need to be able as a country to manufacture both our own vaccines and also vaccines to prepare for any outbreak of future diseases or epidemics. With those few remarks, Honorable Speaker, I want to support.
Thank you very much. The Honorable Martin Peter Owino, member for Diwa.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I rise to support this motion. And also I want to thank the chair of the Budget Committee for his prowess, knowledge, and also passion on this chair. Madam Speaker, I have about 3 items to highlight after my chair for health have highlighted on our committee. Number 1, Madam Speaker, a reduction of budget does not really mean wastages, theft, and duplications is taken care of. I would like to urge our friends, my colleagues in different departments, and also the watchdog committees. It is our responsibility to oversight properly so that the departments or all the entities that this money is heading to is managed well. And Madam Speaker, it's good that we also made amendment to our standing orders that we get reports every 3 months. If we stick to that and follow carefully these entities that use these monies, then we will prevent wastages, we'll prevent theft, and also overlapping or duplications in implementing the programs. The other thing, Madam Speaker, is about the Treasury. As we speak today, the FY 23-24, most of these entities, the ministries, the departments we are talking about, have either done 50 to 60% because of the delay from the exchequer. And that also frustrates programs and also invite overrun cost in projects. So whoever is going to be the next CS, budget is one thing, releasing money on time is another one. And this is also making these entities incur more money in running the projects. The other issue which we thank the Budget Committee and my health chair have alluded to this is the access to health. Indigents in this country are growing every day, every hour because of poverty and other related factors. And the 8 billion which is going to be given to SHIF must be used properly to make sure the access to healthcare for Kenyans, especially those on the lower part of lower segment of generation, are taken care of. Because if they don't access medical attention earlier, chances of disease progression is higher, and you deal with of complications which takes more money to manage than when they are detected early and managed. Madam Speaker, we need to talk about education. A lot of money has been given in education, 650 billion. But if you come to my constituency in Dewa, I don't know in your constituency, you hardly see what this money does in terms of capitation, which is usually comes little but comes late. Infrastructure in schools, you can only see the CDF. And this is why we are crying, even if we give a reduction to CDF. This is what works in education. So I would have rather take money from the main ministry and give CDF to build classrooms more than put a lot of money there. I have a concern. Madam Speaker, we have put also some money in manufacturing unit, but I think we need to do more, especially under health, on research. Cambridge suffered some reduction. We saved some money for vaccine, but I think we need to do more. Lastly, Madam Speaker, equity and fairness. The people, they were paying debts on infrastructure. And when you go to my constituency, the roads are so poor, and yet they are all paying. This is public money and must be shared equally, rather equitably. So when they pay their taxes, they need also to have good roads. But it's an issue that sometimes things are centralized, that we have good roads in Nairobi, good roads in urban areas, but when you go to rural areas, there's nothing, and they repay the loans as well. That is unfair. Madam Speaker, I support.
The Honorable Dan Mashako, member for Undanyi.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Speaker, first I want to raise by saying I support the report by the Budget and Appropriations Committee as tabled to the House by the Chair, Honorable Ndindi Nyoro, this morning. Honorable Chair and Honorable Speaker, I want to first to speak on one recommendation that has been made by the Budget and Appropriations Committee, particularly as it speaks to the fiscal responsibility principle around having more over 30% of our budget, 30% of our budget going to development expenditure. And as we speak today, Chair, in the circumstances we find our country in, the Budget and Appropriations Committee has agreed with the Treasury, and we've reduced the expenditure that goes to development by a whopping 107 billion shillings. Honorable Chair, this translates to about 28% of our budget now going to development expenditure, Honorable Chair. And according to our PFM Act, it mandates that that in every year's budget, minimum of 30% to go into development. And we've recommended that Treasury, in the next BPS that will be done in February next year, they must adhere to this principle where 30%, minimum of 30% goes to development, Honorable Speaker. Why I say this, Honorable Speaker, we know that for our economy to grow, we must have economic activity happening in the country. We see today where we are reducing expenditure on development. That means there'll be little money in circulation, Honorable Speaker. And this will affect our aggregate demand. And therefore, Honorable Speaker, we may not achieve the development aspirations that this country has aspired. And therefore, Honorable Speaker, government, that is executive, must create a conducive environment for the private sector to prosper, for the private sector to create the jobs that have been very elusive, for private sector to do business without interruptions, Honorable Speaker. Why I say this, Honorable Speaker, now that we have a higher deficit, we had anticipated to have a 3.3% deficit this financial year, but because of what happened with the finance bill, we are raising this deficit to almost 4 to